Hello and welcome to Brewers Daily, part of the Fan Arch Podcast Network here. I'm your host, Dave Gasper. Lots to get to here on a Tuesday show. The Brewers have had their first exhibition game against the Cincinnati Reds. They are back home here in Milwaukee. Got another game here today, and then after that, these games are going to count for real. Lots of news and notes coming out of this game. Now that we have Pat Murphy back, we got a full media contingent. We're able to talk with him, ask him questions. And now that things kind of seem more in place for the season, we can get some more actual intel and details here as for what the Brewers' plans are for this upcoming season. So lots of that I want to talk about here on the show today, starting with the big news with the Brewers starting rotation plans that they have announced. They have put out their probable starters for the first two series of the regular season. You got the White Sox and then the Rays. And so we knew Jacob Misiorowski was going to be pitching on opening day. After that, it was kind of a toss-up. Brandon Woodruff, the big question mark, but Woodruff is in the starting rotation. He will not need an IL stint. He will not be starting in the minors, doing any sort of rehab thing. He will be ready to go, and he is going to be pitching out of the number 5 spot. So he's going to be pitching on Tuesday against the Rays, that second game against Tampa Bay. So he's in the 5 spot in the rotation. So after Jacob Misiorowski, it will be Chad Patrick for Game 2 of the regular season. Brandon Sproat will then have Game 3 to finish off the White Sox. And then Kyle Harrison will be your number 4 starter, getting that first game against the Rays. And then Brandon Woodruff. And then we start back over again with Jacob Misiorowski. So that is the order here for the starting rotation. You got Miz, Patrick, Sproat, Harrison, and Brandon Woodruff. Now, Brandon Woodruff is not your typical, number 5 starter because, if he were fully healthy and built up, he'd be your opening day guy. So, assigning the numbers, number 1 guy, number 2 guy, number 3 guy, it kind of goes out the window here a little bit. This is just kind of how it lined up. Kyle Harrison dealing with a blister, Brandon Woodruff still trying to build up. That's why those guys are pushed to the back of the rotation, and Patrick and Sproat get moved up further in the rotation here. So that's where it ended up going, but we do have that starting rotation fully out now. So excited to see Brandon Woodruff get back in there. And he told us when we talked to him in the clubhouse before the game on Monday that he thought it was important. He didn't want the story to be him going to start the year in the minors, that he's still dealing with the lat issue because he feels physically fine. I mean, he told us he feels great. I mean, that's not the issue. It's just a matter of building up, getting the pitch count up and being ready. So he's going to continue that build up. And we'll see ultimately how many pitches he's going to be able to go in that first game against the Tampa Bay Rays. But Woodruff is feeling good. He's excited to be in the rotation. And Pat Murphy, we asked him about it as well. And he said, look, you got to trust the player in this situation. Whether it's Murph's concern or Matt Arnold's concern, whatever it is, you have to trust the player. Brandon Woodruff knows his body better than anyone else. He's been at this a long time, so he kind of knows where he needs to have his body at, how it's feeling, and what that means. So when he says he's good to go, they are going to trust him, and that is why he's going to end up being in this initial starting rotation. So they'll continue to build him up. I'd imagine he'd have another simulated outing here coming up, and then after that, he is going to be in there against the Tampa Bay Rays. So starting rotation has been put into place. How long will it stay that way? Who knows? But certainly it is going to change as the season goes along, because there's also one piece that the Brewers are going to be wanting back in that rotation, and that is Quinn Priester. Pat Murphy also talked about a timeline for him to get back into action. Pretty soon he's going to be throwing some bullpens. And then they can send him out for some action. So for Priester, he's feeling good. He's progressing well, responding well to treatment for that thoracic outlet syndrome in his arm that he's been dealing with. And he expects an early May return for Quinn Priester. So that's when he said we can expect to see him. So misses a month out of the year. At least they've got the wrist thing figured out, and they know how to proceed here. So you got a timeline for that. Priester obviously going to be very important for this group. Had a big role on last year's squad, and you'd like to see a great sophomore season in Milwaukee. Going to be off to missing April here, but early May is the projected return for Quinn Priester to this group. So once he comes in, who comes out of that rotation, that's going to be determined when we get to May. I mean, we're still in March here. We still got a ways to go until that happens. And that's just going to be kind of basically determined by who's pitching well at the time and who is not. So, good news there on Quinn Priester. We have a timeline for him when we can expect him to come back. All right, also, I want to talk about the outfield here because we did get some news on that as well. I asked Pat Murphy about the outfield plans, what they're going to be doing with Garrett Mitchell and Brandon Lockridge. He confirmed that it's largely going to be a platoon out there in center field. As I've kind of talked about on the show, Garrett Mitchell being the left-handed hitter facing righties, and then Brandon Lockridge being a right-handed hitter facing lefties. So that generally seems to be the plan, that it's just going to be those two guys, lefty-righty, pretty strict platoon kind of ideas there. They both play great defense in center. Lockridge having a great spring. Garrett Mitchell, not so much, but he did have a ringing double here in the game on Monday against Cincinnati Reds. And, asking Murphy about that as well. I mean, it's just great to see one go through, just mentally, to try and help get guys going as we get into the season. So, positive step there. Hasn't made a ton of contact this spring, so just to be able to get one and get it on the barrel. I mean, that was an exit velocity of about 108 off the bat from Garrett Mitchell. So great to see that for him. Largely going to be a platoon split there, though. So it's not going to be. We're probably not going to see as much of Garrett Mitchell facing left-handed pitchers. Although Murphy did talk about his upside as well. I mean, he's got an incredibly high upside, a ton of talent there with Mitchell. So when you have that upside, Murphy knows is in there. I mean, they know that there is a star potential upside in there, but that'd be a type of guy you'd like to see every single day. If you got star potential upside, that's someone who plays every single day, regardless of whether it's a lefty or a righty on the mound. But doesn't seem to be there yet for the Brewers to put him out there against lefties. Plus, they do want to see Lockridge. Lockridge has been playing well. Give him a chance to play. But also, part of this as well that Pat Murphy talked about post-game from the Monday exhibition here was that we could see more of Christian Yelich in the outfield this season. And I think that's also a very important takeaway as well, because Yelich, he played left field in the game on Monday night. And just being further away from back surgery, the question was like, hey, look, could we see him out there more this year? Because obviously he's been outfield in the past, very good athlete still. And Pat Murphy can confirm that is very much a possibility. He certainly can do it. He can play outfield a whole lot more this season. And Murphy also mentioned, too, that if center field isn't offensive enough for him, then they kind of have that solution. We could be seeing Christian Yelich more in left field. And that solution, that I got the feeling was Jackson Chourio then gets moved to center and Christian Yelich would then play more of right field. If the center field if the center field platoon is not offensive enough. So if Mitchell struggles, if Lockridge struggles, if neither of those guys can really get going early on, we could see a shift where Jackson Chourio gets moved back to center, where he spent most of last season, and then Christian Yelich plays a lot of left field. And that could open up some DH at-bats for Gary Sanchez or Jake Bauers even as well. Andrew Vaughn, you could get some DH at-bats there for those guys because Vaughn and Bauers, obviously, both very good hitters. Bauers has had an incredible spring. Vaughn homered again, absolutely smoked one out to left field in the exhibition game. So you'd like to maybe get playing time for both of them. That can open up some more time for them at DH. Gary Sanchez, very capable hitter. Certainly has a ton of power. Not going to play much behind William Contreras. Perhaps you put him in as a DH. So that could be a possibility. We could see Yelich more out there in left field this season. That was one of the big questions in the offseason as well. And it's likely going to depend on what Garrett Mitchell and Brandon Lockridge are able to do in center field. If they can't hit enough, Pat Murphy is going to be willing to make that change. So that is some news on that front as well that I thought was very interesting. So also an interesting note from the post-game press conference that Murphy had, Blake Holub maybe a lot closer to the majors than we think. He wasn't really he's not on the 40-man roster. He was in AAA last season. Not really highly thought of. The Brewers did get him from the Tigers in the Mark Canha trade a couple of years ago. So the Brewers didn't want to pick up Canha's option. The Tigers were willing to, so they just traded Canha over to the Tigers. And in return, the Brewers got Blake Holub, who's been a pretty solid reliever the past couple of years in the minor leagues. Had a 3.70 ERA last season across 39 games for the Nashville Sounds in AAA. 41 and a third innings, 53 strikeouts. Had a little bit of a walks issue, 6.7 walks per nine. But still, according to Pat Murphy, a lot closer than he realizes, and certainly a lot of other people realize that he could end up making the majors. Holub certainly seems to be impressing the Brewers here in camp, and it's hard not to see why. Holub pitched an inning and a third in the game here on Monday night, and he's cutter slider, so just kind of the two pitches there. But the cutter, 95 miles an hour on average. Slider, 85, so you get a 10 mile an hour difference. Was able to get a whole bunch of whiffs there. Was able to get 4 whiffs in just 17 pitches. So he's got some pretty good stuff there. Being able to get some movement. So that's good to see. And Holub certainly impressing Pat Murphy, which is a very important thing for a young pitcher trying to make the club. You got to be able to impress the manager, and he's certainly done that and perhaps put himself in the conversation for a bullpen spot once the season gets going. Again, he doesn't have a 40-man spot currently. He's going to be starting the year in AAA, but if the Brewers find themselves in need of a bullpen arm, Holub could certainly get the call. Pat Murphy seemed very, very intrigued, very interested in what he could do. So that's kind of another name to watch here, because you look at the bullpen depth that the Brewers have, and it's actually kind of lacking. The rotation depth is very, very good, but the bullpen depth, especially in terms of guys on the 40-man roster, is not great. Actually, you got your 8 guys in the bullpen now. Craig Yoho and Rob Z are on the IL, so that cuts into it a little bit also. So going down to the minor leagues, Sammy Peralta is your only reliever on the 40-man roster that's going to be down in the minors. After that, you got Jacob Wagspack, Peter Strzelecki, and you got your combination of Will Childers, Mark Manfredi, Blake Holub, Brian Fitzpatrick. You got a whole bunch of names down there. You got a whole bunch of guys, but not a whole ton in terms of proven type of players. So and especially in terms of options. That have MLB experience. So Holub could be, among that group making an impression here. Will Childers is also up at the club currently for this exhibition group. Brian Fitzpatrick is as well. So perhaps we could see those guys in the exhibition game today, and maybe they'll impress Pat Murphy as well. So and put themselves on the radar, because in all likelihood there is going to be some bullpen shuffling throughout the season, and that's going to mean you're going to have to add some guys to this 40-man roster, because there's, again, Sammy Peralta is the only one at the minor league level right now that is on the 40-man roster. So and that's a left-hander too. So, if you need another righty, that's where Holub could certainly come in to play here, come into the picture. So keep an eye on Blake Holub this season as well, as Pat Murphy points out. And it's certainly going to be a fun season. We got one more game to go here today before they actually count. And I could not be more excited for it. So Brewers got one more here against the Reds. And it is going to be an absolute fun one. The Brewers got the big win on Monday against the Reds, hitting the ball really, really well. And perhaps that will continue for this game here today, but more importantly, it will continue on Thursday, and once these games actually start counting. And when they do, again, be sure to subscribe to Brewers Daily and watch every episode, because we will be with you covering it every single step of the way. So subscribe, get notified every single time a new episode drops. Follow me on Twitter as well at dgasper24. I'll be at just about all the games here at home, live tweeting through it, tweeting updates from Pat Murphy, quotes from him, and what things are going to be looking like for this team. So follow me on Twitter at dgasper24. Subscribe to Brewers Daily. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of Brewers Daily.